Atelier, Escha and Logy, is a game that has always stayed in the back of my mind. I grew to love its two protagonists, the world, the music and the surprisingly decent story. One scene that stood out to me in particular and encapsulates the themes of the game well, was the opening sequence featuring the two protagonists, Escha and Logy ㄩ卄-丨匨. Both sequences are presented very much like the pages of a fairy tale picture book, showcasing not only the game's central theme of dreams, but also the purpose and psychology of both protagonists along with their contrasting approaches on dreams themselves. Because of this, I want to take a deeper look at these scenes and examine why they work so well, not only for the two protagonists but also for the game's overarching message. To understand these scenes, however, we first have to take a closer look at both protagonists and their ideals, starting with Escha herself is definitely the more naive one of the two, as showcased by her rather positive, cheerful and intuitive outlook on things and the style of alchemy she wields, being the traditional style in the universe, which, despite following a recipe, often deviates into intuitive choices. Her dream perfectly reflects this outlook, which is to go to the unexplored ruins, also known as Geosis, after her mother told her folk tales about it. However, this dream also proves why Escha leans more towards the naive side, because nobody had ever managed to get close to these ruins due to the heavy storms surrounding them, making exploration practically impossible. Yet she still dreams of going there, as she feels they are important to her because of the stories her mother told her before she died when Escha was young. A scene that perfectly showcases this naivety, while also building the contrast between her and Logy, is her conversation with Arwen about his dream. Escha shows genuine excitement and support for Arwen's dream in that moment, while Logy takes a more realistic view, pointing out its flaws and the dangers surrounding it. It shows that Escha, despite meaning well, often doesn't think about the consequences and risks involved in pursuing a dream, let alone the means required to actually achieve it. This is often reflected at the beginning of her journey, when she frequently relied on Logy for synthesizing. Knowing this, it's natural to assume that her dream of reaching Geosis would have remained unfulfilled, if not ended in disaster. But it didn't, because that's due to her connection with the people of Kolsate, because without their help, she and Logy would have never made it to Geosis, and that's what makes Escha so unique. Escha is defined by the people around her, people who she's very close with and who she always gives a helping hand to. This stands in massive contrast to the game's antagonist, ㄚ, who isolated herself from others in order to achieve her dream of preventing the world from dying. As a result, however, she forgot the important promise she shared with ㄚ, the person who became Escha's mother figure after her own mother died. This finally leads us to her opening sequence, which is much harder to interpret than Logy's, since it doesn't actually focus on Escha herself. Instead, it focuses on ㄚ, and a third person who appears to be Escha. The sequence itself showcases that the three were once very close until the person who resembles Escha found a mysterious apple. However, for some unknown reason, something happened that caused the two to walk separate paths. ㄚ, who stood at the center of it all, was given the choice between the two paths. In the end, she chose the path of the person resembling Escha, and using the apple from earlier, the two grew a number of apple trees. Now when looking at the timeline, this sequence doesn't make much sense, as it would have taken place several years before the beginning of the game, meaning Escha hadn't even been born yet. Instead, I think the person shown is actually Escha's mother, Miria. The reason I believe this specific sequence was chosen for Escha's opening is because it represents the core of Escha's character. That core is built around sharing a dream with others and supporting the people around her in achieving theirs. After all, if it had not been for the people of Kolsate and her friends, Escha and Logy would have never managed to build the dreadnought, let alone reach Geosis and prevent it from crashing into populated areas. Which proves that, without the support of others, one cannot achieve nearly as much as they could by working together. This is why, at the end of the sequence, Clone and Escha's mother are shown standing before a row of apple trees, seemingly having reached their goal. This contrasts with ㄚ, who was unable to achieve her goal as mentioned earlier, leaving her completely alone. Another reason why I think this sequence fits Escha is the legacy it carries. In a way it ties neatly into the story, The Great Adventure of the Hummingbird Princess, a picture book written by Clone and read to Escha when she was a child. The story essentially tells ㄚ's story, just in a much more child-friendly way that hides the tragedy beneath the surface, much like the opening sequence itself. It is later revealed by Clone that the story was never finished, giving it a rather melancholic ending. However, she later states that she wants to continue writing it, meaning the story will be updated. In a sense, it shows that even if someone wasn't able to achieve their dream, there will always be someone who carries it on. Escha ultimately takes on that role, as she inherits not only her mother's dream but also ㄚ's. She hands Escha and Logy a seed, which, as ㄚ says, will later grow into a beautiful flower. It showcases that despite the tragedies of the past, it's always possible to move forwards and change things for the better, especially when there's someone willing to help along the way. That being said, if we're talking about Escha, we also need to take a look at Logy x Fiskaro, also known as Logy on the other hand, is pretty much the polar opposite of Escha in many ways. While Escha is the messy one, Logy is much cleaner and more organized, which is reflected in his alchemy style. Logy uses the central city style of alchemy, a style that is far more accessible to the average person because it doesn't require the intuition needed for the traditional style. Instead, it demands far greater precision, planning and care. Not to mention his more realistic and pessimistic approach to a subject, especially when it comes to taking risks or pursuing a dream that hasn't been thoroughly thought through. A dynamic that encapsulates this well is the one he has with Arwen. Generally speaking, Arwen and Logy have a very interesting dynamic, as both have demonstrated extensive knowledge of airships and mechanics. However, whenever the two converse, it always feels as though Logy is hiding something from everyone, including the player, making him seem rather unreliable when it comes to his own dream or even the full reason why he's in Colsate, a mystery that persists from the very beginning of the game. But why is that? To answer that, one has to look at the opening sequence of his route and the context provided throughout the game. For one, when compared to Escha's opening sequence, the difference couldn't be more obvious. Logy's sequence is grimmer and more melancholic in tone, whereas Escha's sequence hides its sorrowful message behind a childish facade. The choice of color also reinforces this contrast. Escha's sequence features a much more vibrant color palette, while Logy's relies almost entirely on a single sepia color scheme. Along with that, the focus of the sequence is solely on Logy, with the people around him functioning more like an audience watching him. This symbolizes his loneliness while he was still working in Central City. However, he does not seem to mind, as he is more preoccupied with his work than anything else. Suddenly, the scenery changes into a massive inferno with people running for their lives, and it is there that one understands the foundation of Logy's character. Now given the necessary context, Logy's character is shaped by guilt and regret. He was someone who became too egotistical while working on his own project for a new airship engine and ultimately paid the price for ignoring the concern of others. He believed that no one could understand his vision and instead chose to isolate him further. Despite the maintenance team's valid concerns, which he later admitted to, the price not only just being the fire and destruction, but also the dream he took away from his friend, who tried to put out the fire, but was left with an injury and, as a result, lost his dream as a pilot. We also see later on that Logy sustained a severe burn from that day, which is showcased later in the story. It is easy to deduce that he received this burn while trying to help his friend escape the fire. This is why we see Logy reaching out towards someone's hand in his opening sequence. Since then, Logy has sworn to never take unnecessary risks again, not wanting another disaster like that to happen. This explains his rather pessimistic, cautious and down-to-earth approach towards dreams, because unlike Escha's opening sequence, there was no happy ending waiting in the future despite the tragedy. Instead, he ended up being engulfed by the flames and left all by himself. In a way, his entire backstory reflects ㄚ quite closely. While Escha serves as the contradiction, Logy acts as the parallel. After all, both isolated themselves from others, believing that no one else understood their vision. Both paid a heavy price for doing so and ultimately ended up completely alone, out of their own volition. Logy's story therefore showcases not only a realistic view of dreams, but also how dangerous dreams and their ambition can become if left to their own devices, presenting a rather dark perspective on the nature of human dreams. Though, as some of you might expect, that's not how his story ends, which leads us to the story arc of both Escha and Logy reaches its peak after Missy confronts Logy about his past, with Escha overhearing the conversation. For context, the game's story gradually shifts towards building an airship capable of reaching the unexplored ruins. To achieve this, the entire village of ㄚ and the development department work together to build the Dreadnought, an airship supposedly capable of withstanding the intense turbulence. The main problem, however, is the engine, as it requires the use of alchemy to be built. This essentially forces Logy to confront his trauma. Although he is reluctant and believes it is a bad idea, he ultimately decides to help because of the effort everyone has put into the project. This is where Missy comes into play. Throughout the story, he expresses suspicion towards Logy, prompting him to investigate Logy's past. During the conversation, Logy's past finally caught up to him, and despite Escha's kind words, he ran away, and it's there when we as the player learn of what happened, with Escha confronting him and Logy explaining all the details and why he feels that massive guilt. It is here where my favorite scene in the game takes place. But why tell you if I can just show you?
Logy, you're an amazing person. Why are you giving up like this?
Hey, calm down. Stop pulling on me.
I can't do anything on my own, so we need you. If you say that you're not going to do anything, then you're making me completely useless too.
That's not something you should be so proud of.
You don't get to tell me that. Not when you're telling me that you're not going to do anything anymore.
You have a point there.
Besides, you said you didn't want to build an airship, but here you are, helping us. Without your help, Logy, it would be impossible to dream about going to the unexplored ruins.
That ship's far from complete. We need an energy source, and the body hasn't been strengthened at all. That's where I failed last time, where I fell short.
Then, now you have the chance to redeem yourself.
I told you, it's impossible.
You can do it, Logy. I know you can.
How do you know that? And why are you the one crying when I'm the one having issues here? If you keep that up, I'm not gonna be able to cry, even if I wanted to.
I'm not crying.
Okay, fine. You're not crying. I was wrong. Please forgive me.
Yeah, that's right. This is all your fault, Logy.
So there are still people out there who would cry for me, after I got cocky and ruined things.
Of course I would. Logy, you're an important friend of ours now.
Enough. I'll do everything I can. I can still give up when we've exhausted every other avenue.
Logy?
So, would you mind helping me out, Escha? Honestly, I'm a little worried going about it on my own.
Yes. If there's anything I can do for you, I will.
What makes this scene so special in my opinion, is not only Escha's characterization but also the way she addresses the guilt Logy carries and how it's showcasing the strength of their partnership. Escha proves that she is no longer the novice alchemist she was at the beginning. Instead, she had become someone Logy can rely on, someone who helps him see the great things he has accomplished rather than focusing only on the mistakes of his past. It's also through those words of encouragement that Logy finally finds the courage to keep dreaming, despite the risks and uncertainty involved. Unlike before, however, he is no longer alone, as he shares his dream with the people around him. Last but not least, this scene also answers the question of what a dream truly means. In a way, both optimism and realism are correct, as neither can fulfill a dream without the other. Most importantly though, It reminds us that we should never dream alone because, just like the characters, everything they achieved or succeeded in was only possible with the help of others.